and multitasking do not do particularly well together. All good, the kitchen is still intact. If you came here for a legit recipe, I'm very sorry. Whoa! Guys, this is getting very intense now. Oh, that does not smell nice, I'm not gonna lie to you. Just burnt my leg on the oven. I never need to get a Chinese takeaway again. I am a chef. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I honestly don't think you guys understand how excited I am to be making this video. I'm going to be making a rice dish, a noodles dish, a tofu and broccoli dish, as well as salt and chili or salt and pepper chips. So there's going to be a lot going on in this kitchen today, and let's just hope it all turns out well. So let's get straight into it. The first thing I'm going to be doing with my tofu is using tissues to soak up the excess liquid and putting it in the microwave to speed up the process. Also, I now have a tripod and I'm actually so buzzing. My tofu has been through the microwave a couple of times, so it's now a little bit less watery. I'm gonna try 2 different ways of making the tofu to see which one is most successful. So I'm gonna fry it and I'm also gonna roast it in the oven, and we will see which one is more successful. So this is where we're at. I'm gonna use this baking sheet with some tin foil on. I'm gonna put about half of the tofu in the oven and then half of it on the hob. I wait for the oven to heat up and for those to bake, I'm going to start making the seasoning for the salt and chili fries or chips. The seasoning for my salt and chili chips is going to be comprised of a tablespoon of salt, half a tablespoon of caster sugar, or actually I think I'm using granulated, but whatever, half a teaspoon of Chinese 5 spice, 2 teaspoons of crushed chili flakes, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a quarter of a teaspoon of ground ginger, and the recipe I'm using, which I will link below, also says to use white pepper. Now when we went to the shop I was like, we'll just use black pepper, it's close enough and we'll have some at home to save us buying extra. Turns out we don't own black pepper. I don't know why, what kind of household is this, but we don't actually have any, so in my recipe there won't be any pepper in there. Once you've made your salt and chili seasoning, you can basically just keep that in an airtight container and use it kind of whenever. I'll be obviously using it on my chips later. But another thing you can do is we actually found this in Home Bargains for £1.19, and it's basically the ready-made version of this. And I was super excited to find it because obviously this is pretty cool, but if you're in a pinch or you don't have loads of ingredients or time or money, this is definitely a really cool idea. One shortcut that I will be taking today is I am not making my own chips from scratch. We just bought regular frozen oven chips. In a second I'm gonna put the tofu and the oven chips in the oven for like 20 minutes or however long they're supposed to take, I don't know, I'll keep you updated, and then we'll add the seasoning and all that stuff on afterwards. Now while all that's happening, I'm going to attempt to make a noodle and a rice dish. So I found these whole wheat noodles because obviously usually in Chinese food they are egg noodles, but I managed to find some whole wheat noodles. I'm just going to cook them up. I've got like soy sauce, sesame oil and scallions, or what are they called? Spring onions, and I'm gonna add them. Same with the rice dish. I'm gonna kind of make a fried rice and a boiled rice, but the fried rice recipe I'm gonna use, I actually kind of just made up myself. But basically, to start with, I'm just gonna cook up the rice and the noodles. Then we can get started on adding more flavour. Oops. This is definitely going to be one of those situations where I make enough rice to feed about 15 people. Bear in mind, it's just me and my mum that are going to be eating this. So I've done 2 cups of rice. Also, while I'm cooking the rice and the noodles, I'm going to start frying the tofu as well at the same time. This could get hectic because me and multitasking do not do particularly well together. So basically, I'm just going to leave the rice and noodles just to do their own thing. And I'm going to be continuously turning the tofu over and over so that it doesn't burn on any side. And we're just going to kind of see what happens. If I do stuff wrong, I am not a chef, I'm sorry. You can always leave me suggestions down in the comments of things that I did wrong or things I could do better next time. So it's getting hectic as I expected. The noodles are done though, so I'm just gonna basically drain them out and leave them for now. I will reheat them with the sauce that I'm gonna put on them later because I want everything to be ready at the same time if possible. So I'm just actually leaving the stuff in the kitchen. I'm hoping I don't come back to it being burnt down. But I'm just going on an adventure to the garage to get the chips out. Here we go. Dark. These are the chips I got. Steak cut oven chips from Tesco. All good, the kitchen is still intact. I'm just gonna put these chips on a baking sheet thing, that's not what they're called, baking tray, and put them in the oven along with the tofu. rice is now cooked, so I'm going to sieve all the water out using this colander. Then I'm going to put more water back in the pan and sit the rice in this on top and let it steam for basically just as long as it takes me to do whatever I'm doing. Who knows how long that'll be. Also, don't mind the mess over there. I know there's a lot going on. You know that thing I was saying about making a lot of rice? I was not lying. That whole colander is full. So we won't be short on rice, I can tell you that. I'm just continuing to cook the tofu on the hob for now, as I do like it quite crispy, not so like soggy inside, if that's the right word. So I've been cooking it for quite a while, but soon I'm going to start to add in the broccoli and a bunch of other things. Now that our tofu is starting to look a little bit more cooked, I'm gonna add in some vegetable stock. Now the recipe calls for vegetable broth, but in my head, stock, broth, it's basically the same. I actually am not sure, maybe there's a big difference. I'm sorry if that offends anybody that I think they're the same. But in my opinion, it's just like some vegetable-y juice stuff. So I'm gonna add that in with the tofu, and I'm also gonna slice up some broccoli and add that in as well. I am well aware that I'm not telling you guys any amounts for stuff. One, I am personally making it up, and two, I have used somebody else's recipe, which I will link in the description, so if you actually want specific amounts, you can use their recipe. But honestly, I just used like a smallish piece of floret, whatever it's called, of garlic, and however much tofu that was that you saw, and about half a mug of vegetable stock. If you came here for a legit recipe, I'm very sorry. So I'm just gonna kind of let that simmer for a while now. It does say to cover it with a lid, but honestly I don't know if we have a lid, so let's see. I think this will fit. Bit big, but you know, it'll do. If I'm honest, the smell of broccoli just reminds me of Christmas Day. I feel like it's actually Christmas Day right now, because I never really cook with broccoli that often. I usually just eat it on Christmas Day. In a minute, I'm gonna start adding some flavor to both the rice and to the noodles, but since we only have 4 hob rings and not that many pans and stuff, it's gonna get a little bit more difficult. Now I'm gonna bring out the bad boy, the giant wok. Here we are. And I'm just gonna basically stir fry the noodles with some soy sauce, some scallions, and just kind of whatever I can see around that might make the noodles a bit more interesting. Whoa! I'm actually gonna use sesame oil. Don't know why, I just thought it's a bit more jazzy, and since I've bought it, may as well use it now. So, also I mustn't forget about the stuff in the oven, because that would definitely happen to me, and then it would be completely burnt and probably on fire. But hopefully that won't happen. So let's add like however much of that. I'm very exact with my cooking measurements. I actually love the smell of broccoli so much. While I'm waiting for the oil to heat up, I'm gonna get a couple of spring onions and chop them up nice and finely. And I might even add, we'll see what else we might add. So the oil's actually warm, I just realized because I've already been using this hob. So let's go grab the noodles, add those in. Okay, it's just like a big clump of noodles. Wasn't expecting that, but you know what, it's all fine. Separate them out a bit again. Oh, it smells so good in here. There we go. Let's chop up these scallions. I don't know why I keep calling them scallions, because in the UK we do not call it that, we call it spring onion. But I don't know. When it gets to this point in me cooking, I do tend to get very, very experimental for no good reason whatsoever. So I think what I'm going to do now is add some soy sauce into these noodles. I'm also going to add some agave nectar to sweeten them up a little bit. And just a little bit of salt as well to flavour. Just check on my tofu on here and the broccoli. It looks super, super good. I'm just going to leave it a few more minutes and add a bit more of that stock / broth in there to make sure it doesn't dry out. So this is where we're at with the noodles. They do look kind of plain, but I don't want to add too much stuff because all the other things will have a lot of flavour in as well. So I'm going to keep those nice and simple. It's just basically soy sauce, bit of sesame oil, and spring onions. Things in the oven are looking almost there. I'm not really sure about that. I think I'm just going to have a quick flip over of some of the tofu to make sure that it cooks evenly. This is not looking good for the tofu. It's kind of welded itself to the bottom, to the tin foil. So honestly, at this point, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. but I'm glad I kept some and fried it. What I might do is try and pick these pieces off and just add them into the frying pan and hope for the best, because I don't really know what else I can do at this point. So this is definitely not good. Actually, do you know what? It's not as bad as I thought. It seems to be going okay now that I've started. They've not cooked super well, if I'm honest. You can kind of see. So I would definitely recommend frying your tofu, but as I say, I'm just gonna add that into the pan with the broccoli and the other tofu and hope for the best at this point. I'm actually just gonna try a piece and see if it's any good. It's not bad, to be fair. It's just a little bit kind of slimy, but I could definitely eat it. It's pretty nice, especially if it's got a bit more seasoning and stuff on it, because that was just a completely plain piece of tofu. So I kind of take it back. Wasn't as bad as I first thought, but it's definitely better to fry it in my opinion. I'm gonna cover this back over and leave it to cook for a while longer. Our noodles are now looking ready, so I'm just gonna take them out and place them in a bowl or whatever for now until everything else is ready. So here are the noodles. If I do say so myself, they look pretty decent. I'm now gonna start frying some of the rice in this wok that I just cooked the noodles in. This is my own personal recipe. I'm gonna use sesame oil again because I'm feeling super fancy today. Just add a little bit of that into the bottom of the pan. I think the chips are ready. This is getting very hectic. Yeah, okay, chips are ready. So chips are coming out. Everything's happening all at once right now. Oh, look how good do they look. So good. I'm gonna add the seasoning onto those in just 2 minutes. So let's get some of this rice. Fried rice does actually work better with like day-old rice, but obviously I didn't make rice yesterday, so I could make it again today. So it isn't a perfect situation, but I'm just gonna roll with it. So we have that rice. I then like to add some trusty spring onion. I'll add 2 because I've made quite a lot. I then like to add a decent amount of soy sauce and salt, and I would usually add some chili pepper, but my mum doesn't like it, so I'm gonna add that after it's all cooked because it doesn't really make any difference. So I'll basically just kind of fry this as much as I can, and then I'll be moving straight onto the chips. I know this is a bit unconventional, but I'm gonna continue to like fry this rice in the saucepan behind it so I can get started with the chips. Guys, this is getting very intense now. I think this tofu and broccoli is looking good, so I'm actually gonna do the next step on that before I do anything else. I'm gonna add some soy sauce and also some agave nectar to make this broccoli and tofu a little bit more flavorful. The next thing I'm supposed to add at that point is rice vinegar, but since we couldn't find any of that in the shop, we were told the next best thing is white wine vinegar. So I'm gonna add a little bit of that, but they also say the rice vinegar adds a bit of sweetness where this doesn't. So I'm also just gonna add a tiny bit of sugar in just to kind of sweeten it up as needed. I have literally no idea about measurements. As I say, I always just guess when I cook. Doesn't always turn out well, sometimes does, you know, it's just one of those things. So I'm just gonna leave this, oh, that does not smell nice, I'm not gonna lie to you. But I'm just gonna leave it to simmer down, add some sugar. And this is kind of where we're at with it. So yeah, I'm gonna transfer this into this pan. And that is for no reason other than just to keep it warm while we do all the other stuff. So I'm now going to just add a tiny bit of vegetable oil to this pan, and I'm actually going to chop up some onions and peppers to put in our salt and chili chips, and chili as well. Once these onions and peppers I've just put in this pan, I'm also going to add some chilies too. I'm then just going to add in my chips with the salt and chili seasoning that I've just burnt my leg on a little bit. With the salt and chili seasoning that I made earlier, and we are completely finished. The last step now is literally just to add our chips into this mixture and basically fry them. I'm also just going to add some of this seasoning that I found on top. This step isn't necessary, but I feel like I made a bigger portion than they intended you to on the recipe I used. And the mixture didn't seem to go that far, so I'm basically just going to add some of this on top, just to add a little bit more flavour. This is it, guys, I've done it. So I'm literally so excited. The one thing is that you were supposed to put corn flour in this tofu and broccoli dish, and I completely forgot. So hopefully that hasn't made a massive difference, but I'll just talk you through everything to remind you of what we've made, and then we'll have a taste. So we have the broccoli and tofu dish, the noodles with spring onions, plain boiled rice, fried rice, and salt and chili chips. Honestly, I'm the most impressed with them. I feel like they look like they are just from the Chinese, and it smells incredible in here. So I'll quickly plate some up and then we'll have a taste test. Okay, I'm gonna start with the boiled rice because I know what that tastes like already. Really good. Okay, on to the fried rice. Guys, I don't think you understand. Okay, let's try some of the broccoli. I think I might be a chef. Like, why am I not a chef? I'm not gonna lie, often things I make go horribly, horribly wrong, but this is just amazing. Let's try a piece of the tofu. It's not how I usually like my tofu. If you've never had it, usually when you get tofu from the Chinese, it's like fried and it's not gooey at all. But honestly, I actually quite like this. I think that was a piece that I baked, so now let's try a fried piece. There's no words. I actually love it. I think I might be a chef. Okay, let's try some of the noodles next. Obviously this one was quite plain, but it's definitely a nice addition. I think the sesame oil makes a massive difference in making it taste just like it's from the Chinese shop. I'm not gonna lie, I actually love that so much. And last but definitely not least, the thing I've been the most excited about is the salt and pepper chips. So I'll get a chip and I'll also get a chili with it too, just to make sure it's super spicy. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I never need to get a Chinese takeaway again. I am a chef. Please let me know down in the comments if you do try any of these recipes out. As I say, the chips and the broccoli tofu, I did get some inspiration online, so I will put the links to those recipes below. And other than that, make sure to give this video a massive thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel for new videos every Sunday at 7 PM UK time, and I'll see you next week with a brand new one. Bye!